In the beginning, it was just Ivy. She arrived at the old ranch with one bag and a notebook full of half-written thoughts. The land had been silent for years. No stories, no guests, just wind and wood creaking through the barn's ribs. Ivy unpacked slowly. She painted the barn door yellow, hung wind chimes from the porch, planted 3 oak trees and gave them names. She carved a message into a bench beneath the youngest tree, for whoever needs to sit still. Then she waited. It took time. Seasons passed. Ivy grew into the silence like moss between stones. But eventually someone knocked. His name was Micah. He didn't say much, just handed her a letter and pointed to the sky. She gave him a room. He built a path to the well and whittled spoons in the afternoon sun. More people came. Lena, who arrived with 2 suitcases and a recipe for blueberry pie. Ezra, who stayed one summer and planted wildflowers, then disappeared without goodbye. A dog with no name, who slept under the porch and watched the stars. They stayed. They painted, wrote, cried, built, laughed, and sat in silence. And Ivy wrote one more message, etched into the wood above the barn's door. Always watching, always listening, always home. Then came Rowan. She was 11, quiet, and wore a necklace made of thread and buttons. Her backpack was too big for her frame, stuffed with watercolors and a wrinkled atlas. Rowan had read about the ranch in a message written in faded ink, tucked between library books in a town she'd never call home. Her mother had said, "You'll be fine here," before driving away. That was 3 days ago. She hadn't spoken since. But the letter, the one in the mason jar, she had found it. Not in the way one finds a thing that's hidden, but the way one finds a thing meant to be found. She knelt beneath the youngest oak and read Ivy's message again and again, until her lips silently formed the words, "You are not lost." That night, Rowan slept beneath the stars. No tent, no fire. Just the letter clutched in her hand and the bench beside her. By dawn, she stood at the gate. Lena saw her first, then Ivy. They didn't ask questions. Ivy walked slowly toward her, heart already knowing. "I'm Ivy," she said. The girl looked up. "I'm Rowan." A pause, then, "I think I was supposed to come here." Ivy smiled. "I think so too." They walked together to the story barn. Rowan ran her fingers over the chalk marks, eyes wide. She stopped at one phrase, "Let yourself begin again." Later, Ivy showed her the art room. Rowan didn't speak, but she painted a bird in flight, then another, and another. That evening, she added her first word to the chalk wall. "Home?" Ivy stood beside her, picked up a piece of chalk. She added, "Yes." The wind answered softly through the trees, and another story began. Always watching, always listening, always home. Rowan stayed, at first only for the weekend, then for a week. Then no one mentioned how long she'd been there. She made herself useful, helping Lena in the kitchen, folding blankets, sketching signs for new visitors. But her favorite place was the garden beside the echo tree. There she began carving small wooden birds, each one different, each one named. "Why birds?" Ivy once asked. Rowan shrugged, then answered softly, "They don't need maps. They just know where to go." The chalk wall filled with her drawings. Messages, too. "I miss her. I want to stay. It's okay now." One afternoon, a delivery truck arrived. A man got out with a clipboard and a confused look. "I have a package for Rowan Witt." Rowan stepped forward. The man blinked. "It's from a library in Oregon. Said you left something." Inside, her old sketchbook and a note. "We saw what you left behind. Thank you for the birds." She clutched it to her chest. Ivy placed a hand on her back. "You left a trail," Ivy said. "Now others can follow." That night, Rowan added something new to the chalk wall. "Stay." And somewhere beyond the windmill, a bird took flight. The storm came suddenly. Dark clouds rolled over the ridge without warning, the kind that made even the trees fall silent. Ivy called everyone into the main house, her voice calm but firm. Rowan stood outside the barn, watching the sky darken like ink spreading through paper. "You okay?" Lena asked from the porch. Rowan didn't answer. Her fingers tightened around the carving knife in her hand. She wasn't afraid of thunder. She was afraid of being caught off guard, of something being taken again, without warning, like her mother's car pulling away. The first crack of lightning split the air, then rain, thick and fast. Inside, blankets were handed out, flashlights checked. Ivy moved like water, every step purposeful, her presence steady. But Rowan stayed by the window, eyes tracking every gust of wind that shook the trees. Then the lights went out. A collective pause filled the room. "We're all right," Ivy said. "We've been through worse." But Rowan couldn't sit. She crept upstairs to the attic, her favorite quiet place, and opened the window just a sliver. Wind hissed through the crack, carrying the scent of wet earth and distant electricity. And in that moment, she saw it. Her birds. Dozens of wooden carvings, hanging from the echo tree, battered by the storm. One broke loose and flew, not gracefully, but like a piece of memory torn from its place. Rowan gasped, ran downstairs. "I need to—" "No," Ivy said gently, blocking the door. "They're just things." "They're not," Rowan whispered, but Ivy knelt beside her. "Then let's protect the meaning, not the object. Tell me their names. Every single one." Rowan hesitated, then started. "This one's called Brave. That's Echo. The one that flew was called Hope." She kept going, naming, remembering, rebuilding them in her mind. And when the storm passed, Rowan stood on the porch, shoes soaked, eyes clear. The echo tree was bent, but still rooted. One bird still hung. Its name was Stay. Rowan smiled. She carved a new one that night. Stormproof. Days after the storm, Rowan took to walking the ridge trail each morning, her carved bird Stormproof tucked safely into the pocket of her hoodie. The ranch felt changed, not broken, but softened, as though the storm had shaken loose old sorrow and made space for something new to take root. It was on one of these early walks that she noticed the woman by the fence line. She wore a sun hat too large for her head and carried a battered suitcase wrapped in twine. Her posture was rigid, her shoulders tense like someone expecting to be turned away. Rowan stopped. The woman looked up, startled. "Is this Stillwater?" Rowan hesitated. "It's called the Story Barn now. I read about it in a letter. Found it in a used bookstore. It said, 'If you're lost, someone here might still know your name.'" Rowan's chest tightened. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated, then spoke so softly the wind almost carried it away. "Callie." Rowan's voice was steady. "Come on, I'll take you to Ivy." Callie didn't speak much the first few days. She kept her distance from the group, eating meals outside and sleeping in the loft above the barn. But she read the chalk wall, every word, and on the fourth night, she wrote something of her own. "I remember the girl I was. I miss her." Ivy touched the wall gently. "We all do." That night, Callie brought down a sketch pad. She began drawing faces, half-remembered people from childhood, teachers she once admired, her mother in soft charcoal lines. She drew Rowan too, sitting beneath the echo tree, her hands always moving, carving something new. It was Rowan who first noticed the empty bird feeder outside the north cabin. "Micah used to fill that," Ivy said quietly, "before he left." "Why'd he leave?" Rowan asked. "Sometimes healing means moving on." Rowan looked down. "And sometimes healing means staying." Weeks passed. The ranch shifted with the rhythm of its new inhabitants. Ezra returned once more, bringing books and seeds. Lena started teaching cooking classes for the nearby village children. Ivy organized a community reading night every Thursday under the stars. But the biggest shift came when Rowan asked if she could build something new, a sanctuary cabin for kids like her. "It wouldn't be big," she said, "just a place to come when the world feels like too much." Ivy nodded. "Then let's build it." It took the whole summer. Ezra laid the foundation. Callie painted the walls in soft hues of blue and green. Rowan carved symbols above the doorway, an open hand, a heart, and a spiral. They named it the Quiet Room. The first guest was a boy named Theo. He didn't speak for days, just watched the ceiling and hummed to himself. One morning, Rowan slipped a wooden fox under his door. The next night, a fox drawing appeared on the chalk wall with the message, "He's scared, but he's still here." The ranch began attracting visitors from farther away. Writers, musicians, teachers, and tired parents came seeking stories, and sometimes silence. Ivy printed small pamphlets with the ranch's story. It always began the same way. In the beginning, it was just Ivy. But over time, it was never just Ivy. It was Rowan. It was Callie. It was Lena, Ezra, Theo, and Micah, even if only in memory. One day, Rowan added something to the barn door. Beneath the message Ivy had carved long ago, she added, "And still we wait for whoever needs to begin again." The sun set slowly over the ridge. The birds sang softer now, but the story never ended. Because some places don't hold people, they hold healing. And some girls don't just grow up, they grow whole. And Rowan, who once whispered home into the trees, now stood beside them and answered for others. Yes, right here. Time passed. The ranch aged like an old oak, roots deeper, leaves wider, sheltering more than it ever had before. The quiet room expanded, now with a reading corner, a crafting table, and even a nightlight shaped like a bird in flight. Visitors left behind tokens of healing, a scarf, a song, a painted pebble, each tagged with a single word: hope, begin, trust. One autumn afternoon, a woman arrived with tear-stained cheeks and a handwritten letter. She was looking for her brother, Theo. "He sent me this," she said, holding out a sketch of a fox with a heart stitched into his tail. Rowan smiled. "He's in the garden. Want to meet him together?" The woman nodded, silent with gratitude. A few months later, Callie organized the first Stories We Carry gathering. People shared the letters that brought them to the ranch. Some read aloud. Others placed them in the hollow of the echo tree. That night, under a silver moon, Rowan wrote a message and placed it in the tree. "For the girl still walking alone, keep going. We're already making room." The ranch had a rhythm now, like breath, like home. And if you ever passed it on a quiet morning, you might see a young girl with a pocket full of carved birds standing by the gate, waiting, not for rescue, not for answers, but for someone who still believes beginnings can be quiet and stories can be carved from silence. And that love, once offered, never leaves. Time passed. The ranch aged like an old oak, roots deeper, leaves wider, sheltering more than it ever had before. The quiet room expanded, now with a reading corner, a crafting table, and even a nightlight shaped like a bird in flight. Visitors left behind tokens of healing, a scarf, a song, a painted pebble, each tagged with a single word: hope, begin, trust. One autumn afternoon, a woman arrived with tear-stained cheeks and a handwritten letter. She was looking for her brother, Theo. "He sent me this," she said, holding out a sketch of a fox with a heart stitched into its tail. Rowan smiled. "He's in the garden. Want to meet him together?" The woman nodded, silent with gratitude. A few months later, Callie organized the first Stories We Carry gathering. People shared the letters that brought them to the ranch. Some read aloud. Others placed them in the hollow of the echo tree. That night, under a silver moon, Rowan wrote a message and placed it in the tree. "For the girl still walking alone, keep going. We're already making room." The ranch had a rhythm now, like breath, like home. And if you ever passed it on a quiet morning, you might see a young girl with a pocket full of carved birds standing by the gate, waiting. Not for rescue, not for answers, but for someone who still believes beginnings can be quiet and stories can be carved from silence. And that love, once offered, never leaves. Years turned quietly, like pages in a worn book. The seasons folded over the ranch gently. The oaks grew broader, their shadows deeper. New faces arrived. Some stayed. Some simply passed through, each leaving behind a name etched in chalk, a drawing in the quiet room, or a memory folded into the wind. Rowan, now taller and more composed, carried the same necklace of thread and buttons. It had frayed, but she refused to repair it. "Some things should stay a little broken," she once told Callie, "so we don't forget where we started." Children who had once whispered fears into the night now returned as teenagers, bringing their own stories, sometimes their own siblings. The ranch no longer belonged to a single voice. It was a chorus. One spring, Ivy fell ill. Nothing sudden, just the kind of quiet fading that comes with a life well lived. Rowan was the first to notice. She found Ivy sitting longer in the mornings, staring out toward the field where the first oak tree had been planted. "Are you scared?" Rowan asked one morning. Ivy smiled. "Numbered, just wondering what kind of bird I'll be." The day she passed, every wind chime on the property rang at once. Rowan didn't cry. Not immediately. Instead, she opened the story barn and lit every lantern. Visitors came without needing to be called. Someone played a violin beneath the echo tree. Someone else read aloud Ivy's first letter, found years ago in a jar beneath a stone bench. "For the lost, you are still whole." In Ivy's absence, Rowan took over the caretaking of the ranch. She didn't try to replace Ivy. She couldn't. Instead, she preserved the spaces Ivy had made, then added her own. She created the listening library, a quiet room filled with letters, hundreds of them, all left behind by past visitors. Some were addressed to mothers, some to ghosts, some to parts of themselves they weren't ready to speak to out loud. Each letter was folded carefully, placed in a drawer marked with a single phrase, "Not ready yet," and beside it, another drawer. "Now I am." It became a ritual. Some would come just to sit and move one letter from one drawer to the other. Nothing said, nothing judged. Then came August, and with it, a fire. Lightning struck the far hills and dry winds spread the flames quickly. The ranch had seen storms, but nothing like this. Volunteers formed lines with buckets. Lena coordinated supplies. Ezra led younger guests to safety zones. Rowan stood at the center of it all, soaked with sweat and ash, eyes scanning the tree line. When the blaze finally receded, the damage was visible. The echo tree's top branches were singed. The quiet room had suffered smoke damage, but the main house had stood. The barn miraculously remained. Rowan stood by the scorched soil, holding a piece of charred wood. She carved into it that same night. Still standing, it hung in the story barn from that day on. The next spring, a group of children planted saplings around the echo tree. "It's lonely," one of them said. "Trees need friends too." Rowan smiled. "Then let's grow some." The youngest, a girl named Elle, came to Rowan later that day. "Did the fire take your home?" "No," Rowan said, kneeling to meet her eyes. "Home is what we do next." Elle thought about that, then reached into her backpack and handed Rowan a letter. "Can you keep this?" "I'm not ready yet." Rowan took it gently. "I know exactly where it goes." The statue of Ivy was unveiled that fall, a bronze figure sitting beneath the original oak tree, hand resting on a bench, eyes fixed on the horizon. Beside it, a plaque read, "She waited for us." And we came. Rowan placed a single carved bird in her lap. "Stay," and the wind whispered back, "I will." Years after the fire, the ranch began drawing not just the weary and the wandering, but those who had once found refuge there, and now returned as guides. Theo became a counselor known for his soft voice and quieter eyes. He spent evenings in the listening library, reading letters out loud to no one in particular, his voice a balm to visitors who didn't yet have words of their own. Callie started a program called Letters Forward, where guests could write a message not only to their past selves, but to a future visitor. The mail wall, once bare, now bloomed with envelopes marked, "For someone who needs to hear this." Rowan found herself teaching less and listening more. The ranch no longer needed one caretaker. It had many. Still, she tended the echo tree every morning, sweeping around the roots, replacing ribbons blown by the wind. It had become tradition to tie a small offering there, a feather, a button, a thread of yarn. One winter, a group of students from an international school visited the ranch as part of a cultural exchange. They came from cities with no trees, places where the night sky was hidden behind high-rises. For many, it was the first time they saw stars in stillness. Among them was a boy named Amir, who spoke little English but took to carving birds with such focus that visitors mistook him for a longtime resident. He carved quietly each morning under Rowan's guidance. One day he handed her a small bird unlike the others, its wings tucked inward, but its head turned outward. "Name?" Rowan asked. Amir hesitated, then whispered, "Promise." As the ranch grew, so did its reach. Ivy's letters were compiled into a book. The Bench Beneath the Oak became a quiet bestseller, passed hand to hand among counselors, grief groups, teachers. Documentaries were filmed. A mural of the story barn appeared on a hospital wall in Oslo. And with every new story, the ranch expanded. Not in size, but in meaning. A new wing was added to the quiet room, shaped like a spiral, symbolizing that healing doesn't move in straight lines. At the center, Rowan placed a single stool beneath a skylight and called it the Pause. Visitors instinctively understood. This was a place not to speak, not to decide, but simply to be. The statue of Ivy was joined by a second one years later. Rowan, kneeling, hands open, with the inscription, "She listened and the world changed." Rowan's hair had grayed when a letter arrived. No name, no return address. Just a carved bird inside the envelope, with the word return. She smiled. Micah. Weeks later he appeared, older, slower, but still carrying the silence that once marked his presence. They didn't speak at first, just sat on the porch, watching the sun fall behind the ridge. Did I miss much? He asked finally. Rowan shook her head. You came back. That's what matters. He left a spoon on the bench the next day, a final gift. It bore one word etched beneath the handle, home. And so the story of the story barn continued. It became more than a place. It became a rite of passage, a whispered destination, letters found in subway stations, bird carvings left in school lockers, a chalk phrase scrawled on a bathroom mirror, "You are not lost." And far away in places Ivy never saw, in cities Rowan never visited, the echo still reached. Because the silent bond wasn't only between people, it was between moments, between choices, between what is hurt and what is healed. And the bench beneath the oak tree never stayed empty for long. Someone always came, and the wind always whispered, stay. One crisp morning, as golden leaves spiraled through the cool autumn air, Rowan walked the familiar trail to the top of the ridge, the very place where she had once stood as a child, clutching a letter and a name she barely knew. Behind her, the ranch pulsed with life, laughter from the garden, the rhythm of carving in the barn, the scent of bread rising in the kitchen, all of it proof that healing had taken root and grown wild. She sat beneath the aging echo tree, its limbs still adorned with birds and ribbons. The bench felt cool against her back. In her hands was a new letter, written in her careful hand, folded and sealed with a carved heart pressed into wax. She placed it gently in the hollow of the tree. For whoever finds this, it began, you are enough. You are not alone. You are already on your way. That day, she handed the ranch keys to Elle, the young girl who once asked if fire had taken Rowan's home. Now grown, steady, and full of her own beginnings, Elle accepted with quiet honor. You'll know what to do, Rowan said. Ella nodded, because you showed me how. As Rowan walked down the trail for the last time as its caretaker, birds stirred overhead. The sky above the ridge was endless and blue. She didn't look back. She didn't need to, because some stories don't belong to endings. They belong to continuations, to echoes, to soft footsteps, to wind in the trees and a girl standing quietly by the gate, holding hope in her hands. And so the silent bond lived on, not in pages or plaques, but in moments shared, hearts mended, and the simple truth that love, once offered, becomes eternal. Somewhere beneath the ever-watching sky, the bench still waits, and someone always comes. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking, sharing, or leaving a comment. Your support helps more stories like this find their way to those who need them most.